Welcome everyone to another episode of the Quad Damage Podcast, the best boomer shooter podcast on the planet. Joining me today, as usual, we have Deadforge.
What's up?
We have High Functioning Medium.
Gang.
Yeah, and today's special guest, we have Alex from SharpRocksGames, and he's going to be joining us today and presenting his game. Am I pronouncing it right, Alex? Sandsiah?
You know what? I say Sandsiah, and you are
Sandsiah.
the first English speaker that said Sandsiah, which makes me very happy because everybody says Sandsiah. And I was like, I'm giving up, if everybody's going to call it Sandsiah, it's Sandsiah. But you make me very happy today. You are the first person besides me that says Sandsiah. I don't know.
Excellent.
Yeah.
For the audience at home, I mentioned before we started the recording that since seeing the trailer for it at Realms Deep, it's been one of my most anticipated indie games. I just love the visual style that you've got there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass things off to Deadforge, and any of our regular viewers know what's coming up. So let's get ready. Yeah.
Let's
get booming.
I had to pause there for a second because I about spilled the drink everywhere.
Alex, I should have told you. We all try to say let's get booming at the same time, and we never get it right anyway.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right.
Oh yeah.
Excellent. So what we're looking at now is the demo for Sandsiah, and I believe it's about 35 minutes long. So for the viewers at home watching, this will be looped so that you can see it. Alex tells me that the demo does run about an hour long for those who are playtesting it, but because he's the developer of it, of course, he knows it like the back of his hand, so he can speed run it, basically.
Like I definitely remember the trailer from Realms Deep, but outside of that, I'm not privy to too much information on it.
The thing is, if you saw that trailer, I've changed so much stuff from there.
Yeah. Right.
You said, "Oh, I really like that,"
ago.
and then I'm gonna show something that is like it's the same vibes, a lot of the same mechanics, but it's so different visually. I was working with Unreal Engine 4. I switched to 5, but which is something that you generally don't do, but for like a series of reasons that because I work freelancing, I kind of have to keep up to date, and so what better way than just remake the game in 5 so I can learn all this stuff, like to keep up to date with technology. But that's not something you should generally do, like major changes of engine, So there are a lot of things that personal reason. There are a lot of things that you saw on that trailer or the demo that I don't know if you played the previous demo, that will appear on the game, but not on this level that is on this demo. I've decided to shift what I would show first, and rework a little some things to get the scope a little bit more realistic, which is something that which is like this advice that everyone does, like don't make a game that is too big, just make a small game. And then I thought, wow, I'm super smart. I'm much more smarter and nicer and greater than everyone else. I don't have to listen to everyone's advice that people that made games like way longer than I do. I did and make like, want to make 10 levels and they're going to be like 1 hour and a half each one. And then they're going to have like 30 enemies. And then, I haven't even finished yet the game. So from Realms Deep 2021, but I do feel that this version is way better and way visually, and the mechanics, and it adds a lot of reference that I've feel are interesting from the last few years now. But I have a hard time saying that this is like a boomer shooter. I hang around a lot of the guys that are from the boomer shooter community, and they give a lot of support and they help play testing. They're amazing. But I'm not sure, guy, and I would like to have your opinion on this because there are a lot of things which are boomer shootery, but then there is like a lot of melee combat. The visuals. I'm not really trying to make any visual that represents any old game. I'm the only thing that I kind of try to bring from older games was like to make it like a little bit more colorful. Like the enemies are more colorful. You don't have these like drab browns and grays from like modern shooters. But other than that, and of course there are some references, but I don't really see other games that have like this style that I'm going for.
Yeah.
And
well, it is unique.
Yeah.
I was going to say it is unique in terms of the closest thing that I can think of, and if you were to play the game, you'd probably think I was crazy for saying it, but there's a game called Hellbound, which is released by Cybot Studios. And the aesthetic kind of reminded me of that, in that the color palette is similar, and they take place in worlds which are basically look like they're carved out of rock. So all the locations seem very kind of natural and Earth-like, even if it's a fantasy game. For me, the boomer shooter of it comes not necessarily in its visual look, but for what I saw in terms of the mechanics, it's there's no regenerating health, there's no cover, combat and that sort of thing. So to me, it has a more old school sort of feel to it, and that's where the kind of boomer shootery feel to it comes. And I know that Deadforge and Medium are probably seeing it for the first time now. And I mean, what guys? What are your thoughts on it in terms of boomer shooter?
Yeah, it's funny. I was playing that Flash of the Blade X game, which is technically a melee game, but it still feels like a boomer shooter because you're really just kind of clicking, kind of click delete. So there's a little bit of that, I think, to what I'm seeing here, which is a good thing. I think that you can probably still kind of mentally categorize it in that same area if you wanted to, but it's not the most accurate, obviously, because it's not a shooter, but some of the same.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would come down to
like of things still apply.
Whether you would call something like Hexen and Heretic and stuff like that like a boomer shooter, even though they're technically just melee games with that. You do also have like crossbows and stuff in them, but yeah, I could kind of see that. I mean, I don't know if it would be really. It's kind of like a Cult, where like it is more of a shooter.
Yeah.
But with like other mechanics that are more modern, and it's really not a boomer shooter by definition. I wouldn't say Cult is a boomer shooter. Like it's more like a 2010s type shooter, like a 360 PS3 era shooter. But for some reason, I mean, it's still like these things are still categorized in that area just because like it seems somewhat retro, I guess.
Yeah, well,
maybe it should be a new term.
That most things in indie have been boomer shooters. So you're kind of lumped in there regardless.
So it's kind of hard to make an indie FPS and people don't think that it's boomer shooter because most of them are. But a lot of the movement are like boomer shooter, and not like Doom Eternal, which you need to jump from there, jump to the other side, and then make like a flip in the air and jump on a platform. You see that most things happen more like on a level plane. And of course you have. You have dodges, which is something that you didn't have. But like you said, a lot of the weapon selection, it's very close, I think, to Hexen. You have things that bring really the combat closer to the player, like with this first weapon, the Tempest, which is the flail. But then you also shoot, but you are kind of going on this like a middle ground between like being super far and super close. And one thing that I want to say, Robert, is that you said this. It looks like a lot like a game that is carved on stone, But this is the first realm, and this is something that I wanted to make clear when that I put that initial not warning, but like the initial text when you start the game. The other realms are supposed to be really, really different. So they don't look like nothing like that. Like the other realms, which are the realms of machines and the realm of flesh and realm of magic, will use no art assets from this realm, or like very, very little. You won't have this stony lava look, this lava castle look. And like the realm of flesh will be like 100% like an organic level. You know, it's just meat and bones and flesh. You know, like everywhere you look. You know, so the 4 realms, they are supposed to be large, and they'll have like each 2 or 3 levels each. And they're going to be very, very different from this one. So I hope I don't give the impression that all the game is just like set in caves and stones and lava castles. You know, it's supposed to be really different.
The machine realm sounds very interesting to me, because when you say that, immediately what I think about is something a little more Warhammer-ish. Like we did Necromunda last week with Mandalore. And that Necromunda is basically, the palette is very orange and fire and stuff, but it's all machines.
I gotta add Necromunda to my list of pickups. I really do. It looked really fun. Like, it's probably the most I've seen on the game, other than like a few reviews when we covered it with Mandalore. It looks like a lot of fun. It looks like something that like
janky.
Got a lot of. Yeah, but everybody little jank's fine.
No. What I'm saying is, it was janky when it first came out. Now it's probably a fantastic experience. It's been out for a couple of years, but it was the most fun I'd had in a game in a while. It very much kind of feels inspired by Doom Eternal. You know, it's very vertical and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
It's got the grappling hook.
I think it's one of the few.
That was like a year or two after everything was Doom Eternal.
Yeah. Shadow Warrior 3 is another good example.
Shadow Warrior 3.
Game kind of felt like that.
Yeah, Ghost Runner. I kind of say that like even High on Life kind of felt like Doom Eternal. Like if you got down to just the gameplay, not really the exploration and everything, it's kind of Doom Eternal like, because there's like a lot of like you could swing across areas, and like you're kind of swapping between like this set selection of weapons, and it's all the battles are arena based with like have different levels of platforming and stuff like that. Which is actually funny enough, like one of the things I kind of liked more about that. I actually liked all the platforming and stuff in the gameplay. Which I actually liked in like the newer Doom games as well. But this game reminds me a lot
the platforming.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Can I just say how excited I am to see another
try to make not that, like not Ultra Kill, not Doom Eternal. It's like because I'm an older guy, I can't play those games anymore and be good at it. I need something that's a little bit more chill, like that happens more in a flat plane, And
and
the skills
and the game's being
higher.
The game's being released through Hellforge Studios, right?
No, we were together at the beginning, and we kind of talked a little bit, and I decided to go my own way, and nothing against those guys. They're awesome. There are a lot of nice games, and I'm super friendly with them. But this is proper indie. As I've had zero support from it's just me. Everything you're seeing on screen, if there's screen still playing for you guys, is it's made by me, by own funds, except for the music, which is somebody that I hire, which is called John Primeval. He makes a lot of music for indie shooters. Yeah.
Primeval's doing the music. I had no idea. Everyone knows who he is. The man's got some caliber to him.
Yeah, he's super nice. He was super great. He just goes overboard with the things that he made for me. I'm just I can't pay you. I wish I could pay you more, right? Because he just makes things so. I hope to hire him to do the rest of the tracks for the other levels.
Well, I'm sure he will, because his name attached to it will be a big selling point for it. It's quick question, Medium. I don't know if you wanted to ask a question, but I would like to ask Alex at some point how we got into game development. What drew you to this particular industry or something?
I'm actually a civil engineer. I've worked in a lot of small and medium-sized companies. I had my own consulting business. I designed dams and irrigation systems and water treatment and drainage and urban planning for flooding. And I wasn't really feeling it anymore, It's super stressful and super not fulfilling. And I always had this thing that I kind of enjoyed 3D modeling, programming, and a game, but games itself were not really a part of my life, because I was because I was a grown up, you know. And then I kind of grew away from games, and I like just very tangentially. I would like just sometimes I would play a few games. But I was working at home, you know, on one project, and like YouTube recommended me a video about some guys making games, and it wasn't really a good game. And I was like, just like something came in my head, you can make games, like people make games. This is just not something that you go and buy somewhere and it exists. You know? It's like this kid just finding out that cows make milk, you know, like it doesn't come from a box. Why? It comes from a cow? What part of the cow? Are you crazy? And then I started to get like, I started to research a little bit, you know, and start to get more into it, and started to kind of look around the game engines, and kind of tried Unity first because they said it was simpler, and then I really didn't feel it, and then I played around with Unreal, and then I was like, damn, this just looks good right out of the box. And I think this is just a major selling box point for these guys, because you can just drop a few assets or use their pre-made projects, and then it already looks good, and then you get like, whoa, you know, and then you go like, of course, this looks much better, and then you fall in love with it, you know. And that's and then now I'm glad I didn't go with Unity. I really like Unreal. I've been working with it, and they say it's harder, but I'm pretty sure that if you put your work into it, you're gonna find like both of them like equally.
I think the visuals are one of the biggest selling points, and I mean, Unity and Unreal both kind of fight for that. I guess the crown of being
with Unity,
most accessible.
Yeah, I think that the problem with Unreal is that it looks so good right out the box that it has this distinctively Unreal look, because you said, well, that looks good, you know, so I don't want to work on it anymore because it already looks good. And Unity, you kind of have to put more work into it to make it look good, so you have more of yourself, more originality, and then you kind of see that a lot of games look more unique in Unity, I think, and a lot of games that are made in Unreal kind of look, oh, that's an Unreal game. You can clearly see that's an Unreal game because it looks like
I mean, like Unreal kind of has like this. All Unreal stuff has like a sheen to it almost, like it has like a.
I thought that, it looks
ultra detailed, like sheen of fidelity. It's like a weird thing, but I mean, you look at all of them, like go back to Unreal 3, Unreal 4, 5, like they all have this weird sheen to them. I don't really get it, but it's like one of the big things I think that makes it all look the same, but not.
I call it the Unreal Engine disease. You know, you kind of stuck with that, and then everybody wants, oh, it looks good, so I don't need to touch it, because you don't have to make it look like that. And I'm sure that a lot of people can make it look like way different, way different. Like, but for me, like as a solo developer that does the animations and does the character modeling, then does the environment, I either lack the skills to make it look more unique, or the energy and time, you know, to make it to take it even more from the engine. But I'm sure it's possible, you know. But it makes you lazy because it looks so great already. So that's why I call it the Unreal Engine disease, you know.
But it's also that thing is like when you're a solo developer and you're making something, it doesn't matter if it's Unity, Unreal, or whatever. Like there's so much work and effort that goes into it. But then to go and be like, well, I just want to make the engine, I want to make the art look like just night and day different than what it looks like by default in the engine, is also just like a whole nother bit of like just workload that one person it would be hard to do. You basically remake the entire game all over again.
Exactly. And this level of detail that I'm going, that clearly is not AAA, but it has a little bit more detail than like maybe the average, the density of detail, like for the average indie solo dev. You know, I'm not saying it looks amazing, because you can have 2 squares on screen and make it look amazing, but there's a certain density of detail, and then you get if you go into this direction, you kind of have to make the whole game look like that. You know, we can't have like unevenness of detail, because then it just looks weird, And then everything that is not low poly, low texture, low fidelity, it's more than just making an asset that just looks good, Because because you're using more textures, more geometry, you need to think about performance. You are building LODs, and I get it. A lot of people might say, I can make a gun that looks real good, but then you have to put this on the game. And I have 9 weapons in the game, but if I load all the textures, all the geometry, all the animations at once, that becomes like unfeasible, like for the game. The performance lags a lot, it'll be horrible.
Oh yeah.
So you need to think a lot of more about things that the player don't even see, and all things that come underneath that supports this level of detail, and texture work, So there's a little bit of a tyranny of of going for a higher resolution, a higher fidelity, even if it doesn't look AAA, because there is a lot to do. And I've made small prototypes that use a very like a lo-fi static, and it's just so much more freeing. You can do so much more and quicker, and it's you can produce much more game, for a single developer. So that's the second mistake that I did. Don't go for a high fidelity game if that is large in scope, as I intend this to be, and a certain high level of detail, and that's the major thing that people always say, don't overscope, especially your first game, because I was learning so much stuff, so much stuff. That if I started again, I would probably, each time you start again, you make it even faster, because you do so many mistakes when you start, right? So don't overscope, please. Don't make your first game too big. Don't do what I do. That's what I'm saying.
I actually just started making my first game in the same engine that they use for Flash to Blade and Reverend that's coming out and stuff like that. The easy FPS editor. And for something that I would say is a relatively easy to use editor or engine, it's still having to learn the way texture animations work and just all these different things is very time consuming and not easy at all. But it's been a fun process so far.
Yeah. Medium, have you ever thought about I was just going to ask Medium.
I don't regret it, because I've learned so much. I know I'm talking a lot. Good. Sorry, guys. I told you guys
it's not that
we started.
It's the lag. So because of the lag, sometimes we end up talking over each other. It's not the first time it's happened. That's why we were laughing at it. Yeah. So yeah, carry on. Yeah.
I don't regret it, going this way and doing things with more detail and doing all the steps by myself, because I learned so much, and that helped me to get freelance jobs, which I made art and a program, and then I can talk with people about the whole process, and then I can use that, even though it doesn't pay a lot. It helps me to support myself by making games. I'm still making games, even though it's not my game all the time. I just have part of the time making my game. And that might be harder if you're going with an engine that is not it is less commercial, like you said, like an easy FPS. But it's great if you just want to get your first game out there, you're going to learn a lot. And there is more than just learning about the engine, you have to learn about marketing and putting it on Steam, which is a nightmare in on itself, There's so much to learn. But I don't regret what I'm doing. I'm happy with it, even though it's a lot of work.
I was going to say, Medium, have you ever thought about making your own game?
No, it's kind of like me trying to play music. It's I'd love to dabble with it, but I know that what it would take to get good enough to where I would be satisfied with the result, it's probably more than I want to undertake. So I'll probably just stick with what I'm better at, which is sort of big picture stuff, or getting better at writing or something of that nature. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I don't have
I'd love to unpack all that.
I mean, I stayed up 2 nights in a row until nearly midnight, just figuring out how the hell animations work and just finding the right texture sizes to put on walls and stuff. And then I finally got enemies to work. I don't have any animations, but I got some enemies that just kind of like run at you. Then they have some kind of like wonky ass like death animation because I can't find good like death animations and stuff. So that it's funny. And I took a picture of my son's water gun and made it into like a little gun that's center screen like Doom. And I'm gonna try to get a picture of me like doing this and then like put a fire effect and just kind of it'll be entertaining.
Do like Wolfenstein 3D where it's like 3 frames of animation. And then dead on. And then you're dead on the floor.
It's funny. It's fun to do. Like I was telling Sam Marshall, I was talking to him. He's been helping me kind of troubleshoot things. And I was telling him, I was like, I'm gonna try to just make like 5 levels and like just put something together. That maybe, let's just say it's 30 minutes long or something. It'd be interesting.
So you're going to be releasing a DOS Man game, are you?
Maybe
through Sam. Yes. Well, Reverend is that developer Emil's is his first game as well, and it's shockingly well made. You know, for what it is. So you put in the time and effort. The only engine that for me really interests me in terms of if I ever went would be the build engine game, because that's my favorite engine, and there just aren't enough build engine games. There are a lot of GZ Doom games around, and I absolutely love GZ Doom, but I just love the interactivity of build, and it can be built into GZ Doom, of course. But there's just something about the art style about it, the interactivity about it. But every time I sit down and think of it, I just look at my calendar and I'm working 12 to 14 hour days. Last night I was up to 2 a.m. The night before I was up to 1 a.m. And it's just one of those things that will always be a pipe dream. So for me, listening to you guys talking about you have your day jobs and then you still manage to go out and make your games, it's kind of, it's inspirational, and that maybe actually... I could learn a bit something like this. But Alex, I know you rebuilt the entire game. What is entailed in I don't know how a game is built. So for me to visualize what you have to do to rebuild a game in an entirely different engine, what sort of work sort of goes into that? What's the process of actually rebuilding the game?
What happened is that like I said, I was learning a lot when I started, and then I was putting things that I had just learned, and I didn't have like time to mature art and mature animations, and you start to build components and things, and you kind of get stuck with them after you go like far enough. You really can change foundational levels, And the animations were much simpler. Like I really had a struggle to make animations and characters on the beginning. I'm not saying they're good now, but like I've learned so much more. But I kind of had to build this whole system, and to make them look better, I kind of had to rebuild everything, And then this was kind of the impetus to like make this from scratch. Learn Unreal Engine 5, which is not really a new engine. Like, it has a lot of new stuff and some visuals change, but like 90+% of the skill that you have on Unreal Engine 4, you're gonna use in 5, So, and actually the demo that I showed you guys, and I'm not sure you guys because you haven't played the demo. The other demo was actually the first level I ever made. That was super huge, like in my life. Some people took like 1 hour and a half to finish it. So of course there was problems. I mean, even if you made like 100 levels in your life, you're still gonna find things to improve. So I started to look at that and say, that's kind of not a mature thing, And that's why, of course, that advice to say, make a small game, finish this, and then you go to the large one. And I started with the large one, so it's kind of like I made 2 games already, but I haven't, because I haven't really released any of them. But it's and I feel a few of the mechanics were a bit of undercooked. Initially you wouldn't have energy. You would power up your weapons by hitting more the enemy, which you might think that it sounds interesting, but when you go into and play it kind of feels weird a lot of the time. So I went to a very much more standard like mana system, find mana. It's kind of based on Doom, like you get your ammo from the enemies. You only get energy when you kill an enemy.
Yeah.
But initially you wouldn't need the energy at all. Like all weapons will fire all the time, and that would lead to some situations where like wouldn't really work, I think, in my opinion. So the initial try was very rough. So I really thought, I should give this a better try because I've learned so much more, and I was working with other people and learning from them.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, no, this doesn't represent my level that I am right now. And this exact scene that you're seeing really doesn't, hopefully doesn't represent, because those guys are stuck on geometry. And I really hate that they are stuck on geometry. I changed the level, the geometry for this level, like super last time, and I hadn't had the time to test them moving around with the navigation mesh, so they get stuck sometimes. So I really hate this part, but it's still there. I'm gonna be honest about it. I'm gonna improve this. So I thought, you know what? Need to learn in Unreal Engine 5 for my contracts, for my freelancing, and I think this game could be better. So you know what? I'm just going to remake things. And the initial idea to have like 10 levels, I think was like way overscoped, because it was 10 levels and every level would have its own thematic also. So I reduced to four realms, which are separated into like 2 or 3 levels depending on the realm. And the second realm is going to use a lot of the assets from this one. Sorry, the second level is going to use a lot of assets from this one. But all the other realms, like I said, will be like completely different. Like we'll use almost nothing from that. Even the items that you find in the level are gonna be different, no.
Yeah.
But what happened?
It's so many people actually are like they don't understand kind of what goes into the podcast. They think it's just like some sort of group chat, and then you just slap it up on YouTube, and that's the job done, And I'm sure there are some podcasts out there that are like that.
Yeah.
And I love the simplicity of it, of course. But I've always admired
definitely not
podcasts
my
like
other podcast at all.
I subscribe when we had Trav on. He does the Crub podcast. I subscribe to that, and I love the visual look that they give it, and I love how Digital Foundry do their podcasts as well. So I tried kind of emulating something similar to with this one when I do the editing.
When I started my other podcast, I mean, it was a one-man show, and I didn't even edit on my computer yet, so there wasn't. And I eventually I just used the editor to take out the beginning and end where it would show that I was recording with OBS, and then that was it. And so I have a lot of ideas now that I'm better at video editing that I can do like freshen it up.
What do you think in just a few episodes how far we've come in terms of this operation and how it looks and stuff like that? We've made absolute leaps and bounds in doing this. I almost feel bad for some of our earlier guests that had that came on when things were a little Alex, you were saying.
But I think like being embarrassed by what you did before is just like, it's so good because it means you are learning. If you did something like 5 years ago and you think, that's good enough, and you haven't learned anything, maybe you're just stuck in time,
Like, I think that goes with everything,
And the same is true, of course, of
video editing, and it's super. I think it's super difficult. Like it's super time consuming, And you said you really like that trailer for Realms Deep, and I look back at that and I say that's horrible. Why did I put this scene? Why did I put this laggy stuff? Why did I put 3 times the same thing? And I went into Reddit, which you should never go like this. Never go. But they have like a community. they have a community called Destroy My Game, and I put my trailer there. Like, I was being like super brave, and the first guy like, oh, I'm like a video editor, like, and these 10 things, the things that you sucked at this trailer. And I read those things and I said, well, you are so right. Why did I talk with you before? Why didn't I have like somebody that is a professional trailer maker? And I was so proud when I had just finished it. But when people start pointing, oh, this kind of sucks, and I was like, yeah, that's so obvious. Why didn't like? And that's the
I'd
problem
love
with
to
like
learn.
working solo,
Yeah, I'd love to learn how to
need
edit.
feedback.
I think all three of us, Deadforge Medium, I think we're all self-taught when it comes to editing videos. I don't know if any of us have got formal training with it, but I literally made it up as I go along because I run a digital marketing agency.
Yeah, I would say I'm mostly pretty much self-taught. I had a few classes in school that did some editing stuff, but mostly it's been a learning process for sure. But I mean, hey, I was making videos on my phone, so I had to figure something out.
Yeah.
I'm super curious how long people take it, because when I released my first demo, people took like 3 times longer than I. And if people just take 35 minutes for all of this that I made, I'm gonna be like so upset. I really want people to. I really haven't gone like into all small areas with like small secrets and stuff. I just kind of and I haven't shown like the boss till the end. But like still, I really would like for this to be like a longer experience for the time that I have spent on this, And of course, I was building like basic systems like save systems and load and inventory, all those things I don't have to build again. But still, like the environment, I hope people enjoy that for longer, like I don't want to make a super short game,
Joe, I want to get to Yakshow's question real quick, since we're talking about the way everything looks.
Yes, sure. Right, so question time. So when we put the questions out, so we got a response from Yakshow, who's a friend of the channel, at Yakshow. Alex, he's asking, I'd love to know the inspiration behind the primary weapon and the magic of Sandsiah. It looks like a Middle Eastern or Central Asian mystical item. He'd love to know the cultural heritage of that.
Yeah, so the whole game, it's slightly based on like Arabian culture and Indo-Islamic architecture. These levels don't super call out that, but further levels and the demo that I had before were more inclined to do that. But it's not like supposed to be super intensively like Middle Eastern or Indo-Islamic, It's supposed to be like to have tints of that, So the main enemies, the main baddies that are going to be shown later are actually the jinn, like just like in
oh right, okay then, yeah.
Classical like Arabian fantasy, like a lore and religion also. And then you have these lizard-like enemies, which is a kind of something that exists on Middle Eastern legend. I feel like the architecture is also going to be based on that, But then you have like things like this, The Glaive, which is a movie from the 80s that's called Crow.
Oh,
I don't know if you guys are old enough to have seen that.
Yes, totally Crow. I remember that. Yeah, those creatures used to scare the hell out of me when they died. That high-pitched noise that they make. Yeah, but the Glaive is the Glaive made a comeback as well, didn't it?
Yeah. And so it's supposed to be slightly based on those things, but not like heavily not everything is Middle Eastern, everything is Arabian, everything is Indo-Islamic. No, just have like some things. And I think like for European lore or religion and lore and myths, we kind of do that already. Like you have a lot of things that have just like some slight thing that is like British and Irish and Scottish, like Warhammer. Warhammer, of course, is not like Lord of the Rings, but you have elves and you have dwarves and stuff, and you have a lot of things that like classic British Islands lore, in myth. and like the Warhammer 40k, to me, like Warhammer, like the Emperor is kind of God Jesus. The Primarchs are kind of like the apostles, and I feel them like betray him. So like Judas, there's this heavy, not heavy, but like there's this inspiration. But he's clearly not Jesus. But you have this inspiration, and I think we do a lot of that for Catholicism, for Christianity, and for German and British myths and legends. We don't really do a lot of that. Just have some color of it's kind of go like all in or nothing, And I kind of wanted to go like just the color of like Middle Eastern things, And I know a lot of people want to look like for like problems with, oh, you're not being respectful, So I didn't really want to go like super deep on things, and I go into that because I think those things look fantastic and great and beautiful, and that's why I try to be inspired by that. But I don't mean to be like a super high fidelity representation of those things. It's just my experience, that I feel when I see those things,
So what was your inspiration for doing this? So when you sat down and you were like, okay, I'm going to make a game, why choose this fantasy setting and the storyline and that sort of thing? What was your inspiration to make the game?
I knew I wanted to make something that's fantasy, which is most of the time my major preference. I'm less inclined to play like a military shooter. I've played them, but it's not really my style. I like more like Vermintide, like things like that, and Warhammer, and so I knew I want to make something with like heavy emphasis in magic, And then, like I told you, I was for quite a while. I didn't play games for quite a while, so my references were like Doom and Hexen, and this is to me, is a very Hexen inspired game, And I know they are releasing a new Doom, which is heavily like medieval. Doom, Dark
the Dark
Ages.
Ages.
And I think this is going to be and I even made a joke in on Twitter that like I saw a lot of things like a throwable weapon.
I saw that
like
tweet.
medieval. And it was like, oh shit, like Doom's gonna eat my lunch. Of course they're gonna like eat my ass. But okay, what can you do? Already committed to making the game. But I think this is closer. And again, talking about like, is it retro? Is it a boomer shooter? I think this is closer to what a Hexen game would feel like. More exploration, less acrobatics. Because none of those games had like super high energy movements. That's a secret that you can find later. They were more running. Like.
Wall running. A grappling hook. Every game has a grappling hook nowadays.
And it's cool if you like that. And it makes like cool marketing also, and that's something that I sometimes worry about, because the fast games also always make a better marketing, a better GIF, 3-second GIF, But I kind of felt this was closer to my sensibilities, something that was a little bit slower, more slower and colorful, like dark and colorful at the same time, and it's hard to pull off, I think. But this is my intention. The enemies are not all the same color, and they might feel a little bit cartoonish. But when you look at Hexen, they were colorful, right? When you look at Heretic, they were colorful, right? And it still felt dark at the same time, So that is my intention. It's inspired by new things, inspired by Warhammer, Vermintide, inspired by Dark Souls, whatever things that came later, but very much a modern take on Hexen. I think the way that you play and the weapon selection is kind of closer to that than many other games. I think maybe Wizardom, which is very, very cartoonish, but is very cool, kind of has the same vibe for weapon selection.
Wizard looks good.
I've never heard anyone say anything negative about it. Everyone's always like, it's fantastic. It's one of those games where if you were to see a screenshot of it, you may think to yourself, it's not for me, you know. But then when you actually play it, it's like, actually, this is a lot deeper. I thought the same about the demo for Malapataka. It looks very, very cartoony, but when you play it, it's a really in-depth gameplay experience, even in just the demo. But when I was watching the footage, Malapataka, you remember, who was it I was talking to before? Something like that, yeah. I've always... Am I pronouncing it incorrectly?
I have no idea what that means.
Neither do I.
I'm trying to spell it out and figure out what it is, but it's
Mala.
Right. Oh, here it is. It's 2 words.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 2 words.
Yeah, it's 2 words.
Yeah.
There's no worries.
And I absolutely say go play that demo. Of course it is.
Shooters, GZ Doom. Oh, this looks fantastic.
It really is. It has this wonderful portal-like effect in it, and
I love that art style. It's something that I think it looks. The Relentless Frontier has a similar style as well, like that kind of. It's like,
those serpent guys. Those serpent guys remind me of Shadow Warrior.
Yeah, it's like you made a boomer shooter in like I don't know, Mario or something. Like it's just very colorful and vibrant, but like super pixelated and old school. Like you could have played it on an arcade machine or something. I like that. It's reminds me of Arcos. Have you played Arcos?
Yeah.
Visually,
the second one's out now already, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
I haven't played the second one yet.
Yeah. We can see you. We lost you for a second, but you're back.
Yeah. I'll have to check that demo out for sure. Check that demo out.
Absolutely, check it out. Yeah, we'll give them a follow as well. So
the problem is that there's too many games. People should stop me games. Somebody should play games that there are a lot. And stop me making new games.
The things, when you get events like Realms Deep, which is literally like 40 trailers, I don't know about you guys, but I'm literally there with my phone noting down all the names of the games that I want, and your game was one of those. As I mentioned, that's how I discovered it.
When I watched Slim's thing, and he showcased like 200 freaking games, I'm over here sitting like, I need paper, give me a pen or something. Like, go into my notes on my phone. I gotta write. Okay, that looks interesting. This looks interesting. Start wish listing stuff. And like,
just copy paste the description, right?
Yeah, like
and you just
like,
it's crazy.
Such a great guy. He's just so like excited about the whole thing. So
full of life.
Yeah. He's full of life and he loves this thing, and it's great to see him.
It was awesome.
And,
it was really cool to see
my 7-year-old. I always say
showcase.
What do you say? Like holy macaroni balls at home.
Holy macaroni meatballs. Yes, they're. I always go into his chat when I catch that he's live streaming, and I just go there to just chat shit. Because Lim and I have known each other for a while now through our Boomer Shooter connections, and so we're at that point now where you just you can make fun of each other and stuff. But he's a very passionate man. He's a very hardworking man. And the other example I always give is the person that asked this question, Hyaksho, as well. He has a very upbeat personality as well, and it really comes through the camera. And I'm more of a conversationalist, so it's kind of difficult for me to be like, "Oh, hi, welcome to the Boomer Shooter podcast," because I look like an idiot, when I do that. It doesn't suit me. It doesn't suit the tone of my voice. And so whenever I watch Slim and Hyaksho, I always kind of admire what they're doing. And I've said several times on the podcast as well, I admire what Deadforge and High Functioning Medium do, and that they're able to create these very in-depth, intellectual, long-form content videos discussing, the ins and outs of a video from beginning to end. Medium just did speaking of Warhammer, Medium just did a bolt gun video a couple of weeks ago, and it was bolt gun and Forges of Corruption DLC within the same video. Have you played bolt gun?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Super interesting. I think it's such a good introduction to get people say the normies into indie games. Because everything that's like connected to it wasn't, I think it wasn't like super small studio that did it, of course it wasn't like, and it's connected to Warhammer, so it's already big,
Yes, yeah.
and but it has this look, like this retro look, like pixelated look, and that might like open people's hearts into getting into things that don't look like Call of Duty, things that don't look boring, because I don't really play those games, and I know that sound like AAA shooters. And the first time that I said that, I said, "Oh, that's just like a guy that says that he only listens to jazz, like the most annoying guy ever." No, I only listen to like jazz from the 1950s. Oh, shut up. But I honestly, like, I don't like to play like AAA games. I like some AA, but like, and a lot of indies, a lot of old games, but I just have more fun with the indies for the most part, just more.
I play a little bit of all of it, but I've noticed that the heart of the industry, as of late in the last few years, has really been in the indie circle when it comes to either, it doesn't matter if it's boomer shooters and 3D platformers or roguelikes, it doesn't matter. There's just like indie games there's so much like easier to make video games, and it's a lot easier for people to get into making video games than it ever has been at any point in history. And there's so many engines and so many things. But like, and sure, that adds like a big challenge of like marketability and how people can get out there and how easy or difficult it is to sell something. But there's so many, and all these indie games, they're the ones like with all the innovation. They're the ones with all these like interesting concepts, the most visually interesting, and some of the best music. I mean, they're really just like pushing the bar in ways that like you really only used to see in the 90s and early 2000s and stuff like that, or like the really early days of games. More so than most AAA that are just kind of sticking to the same formula that they've been doing for the last while.
I was going to say something like that. I was going to say that the last really interesting era, I think, for gaming was the PlayStation and Xbox 360 era, where you almost couldn't tell the difference between a AAA game and an indie game because they had such a huge, varied collection of every type of game. And then somewhere over the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 era, it became the big ass titles, and you saw the division happening. It was either the big ass PlayStation exclusives and Xbox with their Game Pass and first party stuff. And you look now, and it's literally divided into the Call of Duties, etc., and then everything indie. And this is why I gravitate towards indie, because this is where the community is, us talking, and this is where the ingenuity is as well. You can have conversations with developers and stuff. We're never going to get Phil Spencer on here. He's far too up in his fucking up in his throne to talk with us, but we can talk with real people about the day-to-day sort of ins and outs of what it is to develop and market a game, etc.
I think PlayStation really kind of forced games to like narrow into being a lot of these like point A to B, well crafted, like story driven like adventures, and but like that are very handholdy as time goes on, and so there are a lot of like, I guess your average person is more keen to play something like that, or then like
they've kind of poisoned the waters, haven't they?
Yeah, and then you got like
a lot of the discourse is like people who only played their PS4 super hits and then whatever the sequel was on PS5, and they think that's the new standard. Like they'll criticize, like, what is this stupid game with the bad graphics and no story? Get out of my face.
Which is crazy, but it's also it's like you take something like Call of Duty, every like mainline PlayStation game, and then like I guess your average sports game like Madden or something, and those are such high level video games that they get the most marketing, the most money. They're very consistent, and they're always coming out. They got a lot of eyes on them, and your average players are getting those. Those are also the games that are bundled with your system when you buy them, that kind of thing. And it's like what your average person is playing, I guess. But if you just look, I mean, even in the AAA space, there's games out there that are pushing the medium, that some are also very popular, some are less popular, but they get less attention than like the mainline stuff, and then everybody goes and complains, oh, there's no innovation, nobody makes good games anymore. I'm like, well, you're just not playing the right games and you're not looking in the right places. But
Exactly.
you got to branch out.
I remember a game that was released a few months ago, which has a lot of the same sensibilities, I guess. Like it's a fantasy shooter with you control like a mage wielding guy, like Immortals of Avernum, I think was the name.
Immortals of Avium.
Oh, right, yeah.
And
Yeah,
then I took one
Game
look at the inventory screen, and it's a single player game, and then they have like 3 different types of currency. And then it looked like exactly like Destiny, and I was like, this game is going to suck, like for sure. And like nobody played that, and it was like flopped hard. Why do you have that? Why it's a single player game? Why do you need to make like the treadmill like Destiny 2? That sucks so much. Like,
yeah, and the crazy part is that it actually seems to be a cool game, but they're like, okay, well, we got to have all these just random things in here because it's over-engineered. It's technically a AA game with like a big budget. It's kind of like Callisto Protocol or something, where it's like actually a really small team, like of less than 100 people, making a game with a AAA budget. But then they're like, okay, well, we got to have like 37 menus and 3 currencies and just a random bunch of crap that doesn't even make any sense for our game that is single player. They also marketed it really terribly because it actually is like somewhat a looter kind of game, and it's actually semi-open world. Like all their trailers and everything make it seem as if it's just a point A to B linear game, but it's actually like semi-open world with each level, and there's actually like side activities and collectibles and other things to do in each location or whatever. It's still something that I have to play, but I looked into it a lot because it actually looked pretty fun. But it's done very, very poorly. I don't know if it's got any more eyes on it since it went to Game Pass, but it's done really bad.
It probably had a surge and then may have died off.
It's among the list of like the EA Originals series of stuff, which I think is pretty good, where you get like Lost in Random and Unravel and like things like that. It's like one of the only good things EA is doing is like giving indie developers money to make games.
Nice.
I think those games, like the studios, they grow so large that you have so many people like having decisions over the game that they are so far away into making the game, and they don't, for certain, they don't even play the game. Like, don't tell me like that the guys that like the heads of creative heads of like Diablo or something, they are super playing the game all the time, like 3 hours a day, like a 4 hours, like 8 hours a day, like a super nerd.
Right.
Yeah,
You've got phones,
I bet they don't even like games, you know. I bet they don't even like games.
That's what surprises me
not
about
even
how
say they don't play games.
How well like Red Dead 2 turned out. With a game that had over 3,000 developers in it.
Wow.
And it turned out to be a really good game, you know, it didn't have a bunch of like just random shit that didn't even need to be there thrown into it. It was just other than counting the extremely failed like online, but that was a given. But you know, as a single player experience, the reason everyone actually bought it, like it's phenomenal, you know. And sure, some people hate it because it's slow and realistic or whatever, but to have so many people work on it, what they accomplished is pretty good, given that like most of the people in charge of a lot of different things, or even a lot of the different people working on aspects of the game probably never even came into contact at all while creating these things. Like the person making the character probably never even saw the person making the trees and so on, and like they somehow still made a cohesive product.
Yeah, that's kind of the flip side I'm seeing to that. You know, you see all those clickbaity type videos like, is gaming dying?
Yeah, all the time. I hate those damn videos, man.
Like, I even wanted to make one that was like the anti-clickbait version to be like, it's not dead, but you know, this kind of thing. And then like pick all the real examples from both sides of the argument, try and get to the bottom of it. Because there's like too many good things to hate games in general, but it's sort of like, it's like you kind of need to feel like there's like you can connect to the creators in some way. You don't just feel like it's this sort of veneer, like people are just like kind of throwing games from their ivory tower down the side of the hill. They're like, I mean, if it finds somebody, it finds somebody.
It feels like the people making those videos, it's like your basic game player who's just playing like GTA, Call of Duty, and stuff like that, and Madden on the weekends. It's their response to finally like waking up and realizing that they've been playing the same thing for the last 10 years and it's actually never changed much. And there's like other things out there, but they're just not open enough to jump and try something new. They're not open-minded enough to like go just slightly outside their comfort zone and find an entire world of video games that they've been missing for like their entire life.
Right, they pretend to be highbrow.
Probably don't even know where to find those
and then
games, you know, like
the same reason they keep being made is they appeal enough to these people where they don't stop buying these things they complain about every time, you know.
Yeah, and that's also another thing I think that's really good about Game Pass is that there's so many like just random weird like indie games that pop up on Game Pass all the time. And it's like probably one of the only ways for so many just casual regular gamers to like experience something like that, to experience this random ass roguelike or 2D platformer or 3D platformer or FPS game. Like I guarantee you Game Pass is one of the few reasons that someone even ended up playing something like I think Bolt Gun was on there, and some of like it's probably the only reason that these people even knew it existed was because of Game Pass, because it's not like a big mainstream thing. You know what I mean?
Alex, would you put your game on Game Pass, or would you stick to selling individual copies on Steam?
I could say I have a creative creative integrity, but I have so many bills to pay, like and then I make then you give me like a lot of money, and then in the next game I'll have creative integrity. Integrity.
What is Game Pass?
Right now, I'll take with money.
To answer the question you just asked, I'd say that based on everything that I've heard from any developer, including Rafael Colantonio and others that I've spoken with and have spoken on other like podcast discussions and whatever, it seems to be that like the way Game Pass works is like they don't really get any money for their time on Game Pass, but they get like X amount of money to be on Game Pass. Because like Xbox is like, hey, we want you on here, or they make some kind of like partnership deal and they give them like some X amount of money, however that's divvied up between publishers, developers, etc. I don't know. But it doesn't seem to be like a profitable endeavor as far as going on Game Pass, because like unless there also is like another deal where they're getting a cut of like viewership in the way that like a TV show makes money off of views on Netflix or something, which is possible. I don't know how they do it, if they're doing it kind of like the way that, you know, live TV and stuff does, how they consider something a success and how they divvy out money. But it is useful in the sense that it's like Netflix, where or a streaming service where they get rid of games every so often. So like every couple months they'll like remove things. So if you have your game on there for 30 days, people are playing it and they like it and they want to replay it and stuff, then they're going to buy it after it leaves Game Pass. But it didn't seem to be like, I think even Rafael Colantonio said that like putting Weird West on there was kind of a bad decision. Like it didn't really benefit them in any way whatsoever to put it on there. He actually says that he felt like they probably lost sales putting it on there. He stated that. I would
imagine it's a gamble, isn't it? You know, making that decision.
You know, in their case, I mean, they sold it on Steam, sold it on Xbox, sold it on PlayStation, and they later on gave away the whole first chapter of the game for free. So I'm sure they're doing fine as far as profit on that.
One thing that's because I live in Brazil, my threshold for success it's so much lower than if you are going to live like in London or a high like cost of living place, you know. And of course, because it's just me working, it's just one person living like on a not the lower cost. Brazil not cheap, but like compared with like a lot of places in the world, it is cheap. My threshold for success is way less, so I'm very cheap. That's what I'm saying. Hey, Game Pass, I'm here.
Very cheap.
Hey, look at me.
Xbox over here. Get this guy.
Well, I'm sure that the game's going to be a big success, and then hopefully it will launch a full-time career for you into game development. So one more question before we wrap up then. What's the roadmap in terms of development and marketing and that sort of thing for you? Do you have like a 2-year plan or something? I mean, how are the stages up to release set out for you?
I have most of the assets to finish the first realm of the 4, And what I really want to do is I've dropped this demo for my internal playtesters, and I hope they, just like the earlier builds, they gave me a lot of feedback. So I hope to like make it much smoother than it is in this current state. And then what I'm hoping to do is I'm gonna use the next few weeks to go forth and look for a publisher that can help me like financially focus just on the game, because right now I'm making the game and working for other people so I can pay the bill. So I'm kind of divided, and I know that's not necessarily something that is easy, because and then like to get some finance, but like I said, I'm cheap because I live in Brazil. And for me, like 12 months of like development, since I do everything and I live in a cheaper country, might be something that's feasible for a small publisher, And if that doesn't work, I will still be plugging at the game, but I will like working as slower pace, and still be working with other like older contracts, other freelancing opportunities. But I really like to focus, and I really will hope to finish in the next year the full game, And regarding marketing, I think I'm like the average indie developer. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just like shoot in every direction. If I hit something, it's all right.
Yeah. Well, we'll do everything that we can to help you market it. And from our side.
I'm so happy. Every nice thing that you say to me, like on Twitter, and your support and inviting me here, and just like I said before the interview, I'm sorry I talk too much. It's because I'm excited, just like you guys said. I just drew something in my notebook, and I make these monsters and I make these levels, and then it comes from my head, from my arm into the computer, and then I share with you guys, and then you see, oh, that looks cool. It just makes me like so happy. It's so exciting, and I think that's like the energy that a lot of indies like get. That's why even if we are super broke, we are super excited, because this feeling is so great to share something, and you guys enjoy it also. It's to me it's great, and I'm very thankful for that.
Of course.
You're welcome.
And you have a demo out right now, right?
Yeah, it's on my internal playtesters. I'm not putting it out like for the public right now because it has some rough patches. But I hope that very soon I'm gonna send it out to publishers, and first I'm gonna put on itch.io, and then into Steam. But soon you guys are all going to be able to play it.
Sweet.
Yeah. Excellent. Nice. Cool. Let's have one second. Let me check out this off here. Medium, do you want to see us out? Well, not literally escort us out the room, but
yeah.
Idiots. In my broom.
Get out of here.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for yet another episode of the Quad Damage Podcast with our guest Alex Mees of is it Sandsiah?
Yeah.
Nailed it, I think. But yeah. That was a lot of fun. I guess if you're trying to look for us individually, if you'd like to catch us in our various places, you can find me at YouTube at High Functioning Medium, Twitter or X, what are you going to call it, at High Funk Medium. You can also find me on Patreon. Deadforge, where can we find you? Across the interwebs?
Find me Lord of the RPG on Twitter /X. You can find me Deadforge on YouTube and Deadforge on Patreon. And I believe that about covers it. Yeah.
All right, Robert, and what are your many destinations on the web?
Many destinations. It depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for me in particular, you can find me just on Twitter, RobberYap80. Obviously, you can find our podcast that we have here. We now have a dedicated YouTube channel for it and a dedicated Twitter. So look on YouTube for Quad Damage Podcast and look on Twitter for Quad Damage Pod, because it was too long to write podcast. and then you can see our beautiful faces there. If you want to follow HyperVerse, which is the gaming platform that I run, HyperVerse is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and what's the other one? There's something else that I'm on.
Snapchat.
OnlyFans. Oh man.
Snapchat. That's what it is. Snapchat.
one day, yeah. Yeah, you can find me there. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Alex, so where can we find you? But feel free to rep anything and everything you'd like to point us towards just you or the game or whatever you'd like to show us. Or tell us pretty good.
I have a website where you can know a little bit more about the game, but most of my activity, I'm always updating the SharpRocksGames on Twitter, or at SharpRockGames. The website is the same thing, sharprockgames.com, and the Discord, which is also SharpRockGames, which is just me, which is, I feel kind of silly. Oh, this is the studio. No, that's me. No, but I call it SharpRockGames. Maybe someday I'll have somebody else work with me. Yeah, but it's all, put SharpRockGames and you'll find me. Yeah, somewhere.
Excellent. Sounds good.
All right.
All right, guys. Quad Damage, Alex Mees, Sandsiah.
Yeah.
Much appreciated. And until next time.
Thanks, guys.
Keep on
booming.